Deirdre came to me feeling really uninspired and unmotivated. She'd run her own business for the last 5 years, really successfully. Business just fell into her lap. She did barely any marketing or sales, but now things have dried up and Deirdre is at a crossroads. She told me that she hates marketing and sales with a passion, but given the lack of new clients, she's in a bad spot and her self esteem is feeling it. Deirdre wonders if she should just give it all up to become a W 2 employee again, but in her heart, she knows that's just not what she wants. So, what does Deirdre want, and how can she get it? Take a listen to how we figured that out together. Okay, Deidre, I'm going to read to you what you wrote in, and then you tell me if this is still what you want to focus on and any additional context you think might be helpful. You wrote, I've had my strategic communications consulting business going on 5 years and have found myself at a difficult crossroads. Initially, I found clients through my existing network, and frankly, I didn't have to do much marketing or sales to get new business. It really just fell into my lap. But I'm discovering now that my network is a finite resource, and I really need to get good at marketing and putting myself out there, whether that's through speaking opportunities or posting more on LinkedIn. Honestly, marketing myself sounds terrifying, and I don't even know where to start, which leads to some serious analysis paralysis. Smiley face. My bank account business and self-esteem have all taken a hit, and even I've thought about closing up shop and going back to being a W-2 employee. But in my heart, I know that's not what I want. So I would love overall guidance on how to work past roadblocks like this, and more specifically, how I can tackle marketing to get new clients. Thank you! Exclamation point. Okay, Deidre, first of all, tell me, A, how do you feel when you hear that? And second, yeah, is this where you're at today?
Yeah, thank you for reading that back. The first thing I think when I hear that, I was like, oh, wow, I really hit the nail on the head. Like, I really was like very good at capturing what I've been experiencing for most of this year, honestly. I would say, yeah, that's definitely still the crux of what I'm experiencing, the crux of my challenges and what I'm hoping to work through. I don't think there's really anything additional to add. I think I summed it up pretty nicely.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it surprising when we actually know ourselves?
Right? Wow. Imagine that.
But then the question is, what do we do? So
Yes.
I would love us to get really anxious together if you're okay
Mm,
with that. So I want to go spiral down that serious analysis paralysis together and really dissect all the things that are just terrifying you at the
mm,
core. What is actually going on here? And then
mm.
figuring out the plan. So maybe close your eyes for a second. When do you start to get really anxious? Are there certain times of a day or certain triggers? I don't know. Is it when you go to sleep at night or middle of the night? When do you tend to get, oh shit, with that serious analysis paralysis moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it is that sort of winding down for the day, getting ready for bed, getting into bed. And then if I don't take several steps, such as like meditating and relaxation and things like that, then yes, I will 1000% spin out for a
Mhm.
really long time, get super anxious, super terrified as I'm trying to fall asleep. And then I will eventually exhaust myself really from doing that and then fall asleep. And then in the morning, I'll be like, oh, okay, that was just a freak out. And then just go through my day without really examining, okay, like what was going on there? What steps can I take today to help alleviate some of that? And then I think it's just like that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's address each of these things. So, closing our eyes, imagining that we are winding down at the end of the day, we're getting into bed, and all of a sudden the spiral gets triggered. Where do you usually feel it in your body?
Mm, in my stomach.
Okay. All right. So, you're feeling it in your stomach. What pops into your head?
What do I do? It's just that overarching general, what am I supposed to be doing? What do I do to get more clients? What do I do to get my finances in a better place? What do I do so that every month I can pay myself and know I've got enough money to pay myself and take care of all of my bills? What do I do to get my business out there? Should I be networking? Should I be doing thought leadership posts? I'll just go on and on. What should I be doing? What should I be doing? And I'll answer myself,
Mm-hmm.
but it's this overwhelm of all of the, you could do this, you could do that. Like I just said, should I be speaking? Should I be going to networking events? Should I just forget it all together and just focus on a full-time job until things get more stable? But there's never like a firm sort of, okay, or actually, you know what? I take that back. I will sometimes kind of land on something that feels good, But then the next day I'll be right back at square one again.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to unpack here, and I know we don't have much time. So I'm going to
Yeah.
lay out to you a way to at least see all of the puzzle pieces
Mm,
that we're dealing with here. And then based on those puzzle pieces, you tell me which ones feel like most urgent that you want to tackle.
hmm.
So
Okay.
first and foremost, there's the product. Okay. So
Mm,
what is the thing that you were off? And by the way, when I'm asking questions for the time being, don't answer them yet. Okay. They're
okay.
just,
Okay.
but what is the thing that you are offering that people are willing to pay for? Whatever you've been doing may not be what you want to actually do moving forward. You've
hmm.
changed. The market has changed. I've seen
Yep.
this with Ladies Get Paid. We've evolved as human beings and as business owners, but we don't always stop and say, hold on now. Do I still have an alignment with what I'm offering people, both for myself? Do I have internal alignment? And also, is there market alignment? Are
Mm,
people still willing to pay for this problem that I'm telling them I can solve? Okay, so we want to
hmm.
examine the product, and do we even want to serve this product?
Mm,
Then there's the pipeline. What does it take to get people to know about the product, which is what you came to me for. And I'm more than happy for us to spend most of our coaching time together going into that. But I
hmm.
want to make sure we're not getting people to know about something that you're not even that actually jazzed to help anymore. So I always want to just mention, let's examine the product first before we get into the pipeline. What does
Hmm.
it take to get to people to know about this thing? Okay. And then there's the process. What does it take on your end to create the product and to grease the pipeline, so to speak? Looking at all three of those things together. Oh, and of course, there's the fourth alliteration here. There's the pricing of it, right? So
Hmm.
product, pipeline, process, and pricing. Okay. When you look
Hmm.
at all of those puzzle pieces together and what it is that you're offering and what it takes to offer it, at that point, you say, how does this fit into my schedule from a day to day standpoint? The energy output and the money that I'm getting back, is it worth it? Do I really want to do this? Of course, you don't know. So we'll go into some of the marketing stuff in just a second. But I think part of the issue is when we're trying to tackle sort of each one of these things in isolation from the other, that's not how we live life. Like life is holistic, right? Like when you wake
Hmm.
up in the morning, you sit down at your computer, you're doing work, but there's things happening around you that are going to impact you. So we always have to just, as we're focusing, be able to step back and go, as I'm looking at all these puzzle pieces, are they still fitting together?
Hmm.
And if so, great. Now I can, in a given day, only focus on one thing, right? But we have to
Hmm.
have that sort of consistent dance of focus on one thing, step back, see holistically what's going on.
Hmm.
So I want to just preface everything that I'm saying with that before we get too deep into any one kind of puzzle piece or component. You did a couple of ahas. So just anything coming to mind for you or resonating in particular?
Yeah, I think your first question and point about the product
Mhm.
really resonated. And that point of, am I still jazzed about it? Does it still align with me? Does it align with the market?
Yeah.
Is really resonating. And I think that's probably part of why I've been like, maybe I'll just forget this altogether and go get a W-2 job, because I have been feeling that way. I've been doing strategic comms for a long time, and it's what I did before I started my own business. And it's not really, and I enjoy it, but it's
Mhm.
not my passion project. So I have been thinking a lot about, gosh, is this even from a more general sort of perspective, like overall, like is strategic comms even it? And then drilling down in that, okay, let's say the answer is yes. Then drilling down, there's so many different things I can do in strategic comms. So is there something that else that I want to focus on that would jazz me up more, that potential clients would find more
Yeah.
helpful?
The reason I had a feeling you were, I'm getting goosebumps because I totally, even though you came to me for marketing, I had a feeling you were feeling a little hesitant about what you were offering. Because if you are in love with what you're offering, you are going to want to shout it from the rooftops. You just
Yeah.
are. Because also, you're not going to be looking at marketing as self promotional. You're going to look at
Mm,
it as service promotional. It's
mm,
no longer about you, it's about what you're helping others achieve. And when you
right.
shift the focus from yourself to your service, you're like, hell yeah, we got to impact many people. You're really not just hurting yourself and your business by not marketing it, you're actually hurting the folks out there who are just waiting for you to help them. So
Mm-hmm.
until we really drill down on this thing that you're offering, I feel like the marketing stuff, not to say it's just going to come, not at all. There's a lot of strategy and work that goes into it, but it does become more easeful. Okay. And I
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the anxiety you're having is resistance. Like you are wiser than, and there's something inside of you telling you, hey, maybe we're not ready to shout this from the rooftops because we need to spend a little bit more time really drilling into what we're offering here. This is something that might help you when you think about at the core what it is that you want to do. Okay, so not how you're going to do it, but just
Mm-hmm.
like why. Here's an expression I like. All right. You're helping who achieve what for why. Okay, meaning I'll give you my example, right? I'm helping women get more confident and make more money in their careers so that they can live better lives. The way that manifests can look extremely different, right? And it has, right? It's been a conference, it's been video courses, it's been many things that now I've totally shifted because I reflected on my process, right? What did I
Mm-hmm.
actually want to put out there, my own energy, right? And how much people are willing to pay. So for you, putting aside any kind of titles, who do you want to help achieve what for? And I say why, for what
Mm-hmm.
purpose, really? If you can spend some time, and by the way, if you have an answer for me, that's great. I'd love to hear it. You don't have to. I think you're going to figure it out when you are in the shower, you're going for a walk. It'll be a little
Mm-hmm.
more intuitive. And it's at that point where you go, okay, I know who I want to serve, achieve what outcome for this purpose. What are all the ways in which I might have fun, actually,
Mm-hmm.
fun doing this? And
Yeah.
then you go, are people willing to pay for that? And at that point, we can do some market research. We can talk about
Right.
people, focus groups. And when I say focus groups, I don't mean to make it sound so formal. It honestly could just be a series of 20-minute phone calls you do with people, or hosting a little Zoom call or a little cocktail hour, having people fill out a survey or respond to your email. Honestly, getting just a couple of quality responses from your target audience, you're probably going to see some patterns in what they're saying they're willing to pay for. Based off
Yeah.
of everything I just shared right there, is there anything that's coming to mind for you of the core, this core thing, reason, raison d'etre, that you
Mm.
don't be afraid to have it be quite different from what it's been up until this point?
Yeah, that's a super helpful sort of framework for that. I don't have a full answer, although I will say that sort of what pops up immediately, and this has popped up before, and frankly, I think I've just ignored it or been like, that's going to be too hard or any number of excuses. I'm very much drawn to working with people who are coaching in some capacity because I've got friends who are coaches. I work with a coach. I had a client that was a like a counseling service, like whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
right? Like it could be therapy, it could be a life coach, it could be whatever that looks like in some sort of like creative, like energetic way. Like folks, like a lot of how like you're talking is really resonating with me about like energy and digging deep and all of that. So like from that sort of like angle, that jazzes me up, like helping specifically women like who are working in some capacity like that get their messaging really tight and get their message out there to help more people. That would be super cool.
Okay, so let's say you're now shifting what you've done for other kinds of clients. You're now shifting your audience. You do, let's say,
Mhm.
strategic comms for coaches or service
Yeah.
providers, and then you can have it
Yeah.
down like therapists, coaches, etc. Great.
Hmm.
Okay. When you think about needing to market to them, right? So going back to your original question you wrote in for me, marketing sounds terrifying and I don't know where to start. Now
Hmm.
that we're thinking about this different audience you might serve, do you have some ideas of how you could get the word out there to these folks?
I
Or
don't. And I
for a
think
second,
that's,
I'll just
yeah,
back
yeah.
before I ask, do you have any ideas for how you would market? How does the idea of
Mhm.
marketing yourself in this new way to this new audience, how does that make you feel?
That feels good.
Yeah.
Marketing to that audience feels good. It doesn't feel scary.
Okay, cool. Um,
Yeah.
but tell me, how might you start wrapping your mind around getting the word out to these people?
Yeah. I think that's what's like I had mentioned before. I've thought of this before and then just been like, it's too much. It's too overwhelming. It's too whatever. I think that I have tripped myself up in thinking I don't know how to reach this audience. I don't know how to find out, validate that someone is willing to pay for what I have to offer. Where would I even start? How would I find these people? What groups are they in? What platforms are they on? All of that kind of stuff. I again like spin out and then it's, oh, that's way too much. Okay, forget it. I'm just
Right.
gonna go back to this like known thing that I've been doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I get caught up in that.
So let's make this concrete. Who do you already know that you would love to help, regardless of if they had any money for you? Like,
Mm,
just think of somebody in your network. You already mentioned you actually know a fair number of people and you've been
yeah,
doing it organically. So this is why this is very interesting to me because you're saying,
yeah,
sure, but I think you're already doing it. So,
yeah, yeah.
who comes to mind as somebody you would be like, I want to tell everybody about their services?
Yeah. I've got a coach that I work with who I just think is phenomenal and wonderful and just a good person in addition to being really talented at what she does. She comes to mind as like the archetype of a client that I would want to work support.
Perfect. Okay. So this is the question you ask that person.
Okay.
How are they currently getting clients? The reason
Mm,
you ask that question is because whatever their answer is your competitor.
mm,
That's how if they're saying, okay, I belong to this membership. I'm in a directory and I pay X amount of month per month membership to be in this directory or in this
hmm
community. And I post X number of times. By the way, when you ask them how they're currently getting clients, I want you to get an understanding of how much time and money they're spending as
mm,
well. It's
hmm
really important. That's been game changing actually for my own business. When I interviewed some members, it wasn't, hey, this is what I want to offer. How much would you pay? Because that's all theoretical. And so therefore the
Yep.
answer would be BS. Instead, it was, what have you already paid for to solve this problem? And
Right.
I include time too, because if this person says, listen, I haven't spent much money to solve the problem, but I do spend quite a bit of time doing X, Y, and Z, my response to them could be, my product is going to save you time. And that
hmm
might be worth the price point. So do make sure that when you're having these conversations, you're getting an understanding of just investment in general that they're spending to solve the problem of getting clients. And then
Right.
ask this person if they can refer you to and really describe who your ideal customer is. Now, as you're doing these interviews, you may end up evolving your ideal customer.
hmm
Our good hearts may want to solve problem, help lots of people, but unfortunately, our bank accounts are not going to allow us to do that. So maybe
Yeah.
target customer has to be charging a certain amount to their client in order to be able
Yeah.
to pay you. But in the beginning, at least start with your heart and go with
Yeah.
those who you would just be jazzed to provide your service to. Finding
Yeah.
out how they're currently getting clients and how much time and money they're investing in that. It will become clearer to you what you're offering, what to charge, and how to articulate it
hmm
based off of how people are responding to you. Because I do
Yeah.
think part of the reason that we tend to spiral is because we're solving problems without enough information. I see this all
Mm,
the time in so many different avenues, whether it's negotiating your salary or figuring out a business solution. And that you come to me and I'm hearing it, I'm like, yeah, I'd be freaking out too, because you don't have the research on it. I
right.
know for sure. Of course, you'll never know until you take an action, but we
Mhm.
can't go from like an idea to an action based off of like pure faith here. No, we got
Yeah.
to have data that is telling us, hey, there's a pattern. I'm seeing that my core audience, or who I think is going to be my core audience, they tend to spend X amount of time and dollars in this avenue. Now, what I'm going to offer them is something that is better than that. And then you'll do it at a maybe discounted rate for one or two people right off the bat. You're going to get amazing testimonials. And to be honest, you may already have testimonials from people you've just simply helped as the friend that you are. And
hmm
then you'll build from there. Based off of everything I've just said, how are you feeling?
I feel this feels really good. This feels really good because you are 100% right about what you said about idea to action
Mhm.
with nothing in between. Because if I'm being totally honest, When I started my business, I had just been so miserable as a W-2 employee, and I finally figured out this is what would feel really good, and I just did it. So in some ways, I'm really glad I did that because I don't know that I ever would have if I'd sat
You didn't know any
down.
better. You didn't know any better.
Yeah,
Now you know better.
exactly. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly. So like just going into it, I was like, oh, okay, this sounds really cool. And it worked out. So I just went with it. So I think that is that key piece that's been missing and why I do keep spinning and going from one idea to another idea to this idea. Because yeah, I just don't have the information
Yeah.
to say, yep, this is what I should be charging. Yep, this is what I should be offering people. And this is how I can do that really well.
A good resource, I think you'll get some inspiration from them is, do you know Dreamers and Doers?
No.
Okay, so Geisha is a badass. She is amazing. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them for a second. Um,
Okay.
So this is how they call themselves. They go, Dreamers and Doers is a highly curated community and PR hype machine, which they did a little TM, which I think is funny, catalyzing expansive success for women entrepreneurs and leaders. Okay, so what's a PR hype machine for them? They are solving the problem for small business owners who want to hire communications people, but cannot afford them. They've
Mm,
democratized, they've subsidized PR in a way. It's a
mm,
membership fee. And what you
right.
get is, publications. They'll get you booked on podcasts. They'll help you apply for speaking opportunities. They'll work with you on thought leadership, on writing, things like that. All stuff that you're going, yeah, as a PR person, this is what I would help with, but you're probably
Mm-hmm.
quite expensive. So therefore, you can't help small business owners do this. And so a way to subsidize your fee is if you have a critical mass of membership. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, look at this potentially as a model
Okay.
where maybe, because I have a feeling already when you go to coaches and therapists and you say, hey, do you need PR? They're going to go, yeah, that would be great. And you're going to go,
Yep.
here's how much I cost. They're going to go, I can't afford that. And
Yep. Yep.
now I don't have a market fit. You're right.
Mhm.
You don't have a market fit if you're charging, let's say, hourly. This is like me.
Yep.
My private coaching is too expensive for most people, and I want to help
Yeah.
most people. So, a way to figure this out is membership. Could a
Mm.
group of people pay a medium size amount per month, or usually I would say quarterly or annually is better?
Yeah.
And perhaps that even can become a little bit of a community, right? Where these coaches, your clients, can connect with each other too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you're able to scale your offerings, scale your ability to connect with more people at a more affordable price point. Now, of course, this goes back to the process, right? What would it take for you to be able to actually do this work?
Mm-hmm.
Is this now adding way too much to your plate and it's not worth the price point? Or
Mm-hmm.
does offering a membership model, maybe you're doing less work because it's a little more templatized, or I don't know, get a better sense of it when you're having these individual conversations with your target audience. But because I'm in this space, I can already foresee there being a little bit of a misalignment of what you can offer people and what they're able to afford.
Yep.
Don't let that scare you off though. When you take a look at Dreamers, it's dreamersdoers.com.
Mm-hmm.
There could be something here where you model yourself after them and they're very successful. So you're what they're doing for small business owners, maybe you're doing it for service providers. And that is just a way to get started. I want to be clear. Like you may end up providing, there could be 3 services. It could be, hey, join the membership. This is what I do for the membership for service providers. Maybe you start doing one-on-one coaching where people just meet with you for 1 hour for strategy. Okay,
Right.
that's pretty easy for you to do. And then maybe there's a third option and we can figure that out. So I think it's really being as creative as possible in all the things that you're excellent at. How do you share that with the world
Mm-hmm.
at maybe 3 different price points?
Yeah. Yep.
If it's all feeling overwhelming, that's simply because you haven't had the conversations with your core audience yet. And you may hear over and over from them that there's, out of all the things, one thing in particular that could really use help with. And maybe you need
Mm-hmm.
that further. But when you hit a roadblock, it doesn't mean the whole thing is shit.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean
Yeah.
shit. It just means, okay, if it's not this kind of model, is there a different model, right? Like I said, if it's not paying per project, is it a quarterly fee? what would
Mhm.
the process look like on your end? Questions for me in the meantime before we move on to maybe like marketing or any other things that you want to target?
I don't think so. I think I have another P, I think, to add to
Good.
your list. What you were just saying about just because one thing isn't working doesn't mean the whole thing is shit. And that is really resonating with me because I tend to just be like, okay, well, forget the whole thing. I don't know what I'm doing. Just forget it. So the P that I'm thinking of is pivoting.
Uh-huh.
That pivoting is really important,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to just be like, throw the whole thing away. Let's just get creative. And that stuff is fun to me too. I think I'm losing sight of what's fun.
Mhm.
It's fun to think about these different ways, like what you're sharing with me. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, what a fun idea. Oh, I can't wait to just sit down and literally think this
Whiteboard
through
it.
and then talk to
Yeah.
people. Yeah, exactly. Whiteboard it. And oh, that's so cool. So I think that it's also a helpful reminder of, okay, this can be fun. It doesn't have to be, I think I've made it really hard and made it feel really icky sometimes. And that makes me want to avoid.
Yes, that's because it has the burden of making money. Haha.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
if this was just like our senior thesis, hell yeah.
Right.
But like
I'd be having a blast.
right.
Yeah,
Or if you're figuring this out for a client, fun.
exactly.
So there is that money piece. And if you haven't listened through the episodes I've done with Brittany Tam, who specializes
Mm,
in coaching entrepreneurs improve their relationship with money, I have a whole
mhm,
series with her as I've been overhauling both my business model and also my like business mentality. Just make sure you have your bare necessities covered. You know what you need to make. And then you have your here's what I want to make. It's your aspirational
mhm.
goal and just separate the two.
Yeah,
Constantly going off of the aspirational, yeah, you're probably falling short. But if you have your basic needs covered and you know you're in the pivot stage right now, that's okay. Pivot and basic needs go hand in hand. When we're
right,
out of the pivot, no, we need to be getting to the aspirational money. But if
right.
you're in the pivot right now, I think you got to remind yourself, listen, I have my basic needs covered. We're okay. We're just not going to stay in this part of our lives for that much longer. And I would say
Mhm,
real pivots, I think, take a year, but in terms of figuring out yourself, you probably will nail this in a month, not even
mhm,
really, because
mhm.
you're going to be listening to your intuition and you're going to have these conversations with your people.
Yeah,
You're going to be applying things that you already do. You're just going to be doing it for different people,
yeah.
maybe in a little bit of a different way, but the core competencies you're bringing to the table, it's not like you're going to have to learn JavaScript. Like I don't think
Right.
much like skill building that you have. It's taking your strengths and just maybe applying it in a different direction. So I
Yeah.
really feel like it's going to come together. Um,
Mhm.
but I would say, let me think about this. As next steps for you here, maybe you tell me, what do you see as couple of next steps that you'll be able to focus on so that when you're having the anxious spiral, you can go back and say, all
Mhm.
right, I have my list. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So I think first thing that comes to mind, I added a few more people to that list of folks that I already know to reach out to and ask those questions about how are they currently getting clients and how much time and money are they spending. So I'd love to just that really feels like a good next step for me is just reaching out to those folks and just say, hey, I'm just doing some thinking about my business. I don't want people to think, I don't want them to think I'm like trying to pitch them something like
No.
off top, just like, hey, we're friends. And I have like very good friendly relationships with them. So I think that's a really good first step. And then I think another really good second step after that is checking out that Dreamers and Duders, Doers website and wrapping my head around that membership model.
Mhm.
I'd love to just like brainstorm on what that could look like for me. I think that sounds really exciting because I have at times in the past thought about how can I more like templatize, standardize some of the things that I do for folks.
Mhm.
Because I do end up doing a lot of the same types of work for clients that I have. Of course, there's some customization based on what they're doing and their goals, but I think that's a really interesting model. So I'd love to just spend some time on that website thinking that through. I've got a friend of mine who's also a freelance entrepreneur and she's a great sounding board. So talk this through with her and maybe some other folks. I feel like those are the
Amazing.
first steps.
Those are the
Yeah.
first steps. And I'll add a couple of next ones after that.
Okay.
Just start making a list of what are the things that you really love doing that just light you up.
Mhm.
which could be related to your current direction or not. For example, with me, when I'm coaching, I love problem solving for people.
Mhm.
Okay, so I love problem solving. Okay. I get really excited when I'm seeing my clients follow through. Okay. So not just
Mhm.
having the aha moments, but when they come to me and they're like, I actually did the thing that we talked about.
Mhm.
That's really critical for you to know those things already because you're going to design your offerings. So
Right, right.
doing these interviews with your core audience to figure out what their needs are and what they're willing to pay for. And that's awesome. But we also want to make sure you're excited to do it. So that's
Yep.
why simultaneously you're going to already be reflecting on, without hearing from them, what do you love to do? And
Mhm.
then once you get the responses from these people, you can match it up with what you've already reflected on as your
Mhm.
strengths and kind of energy. And
Yep.
things then come together.
Mhm.
So that's important. And also, by the way, as you're thinking about what it is that you're offering, always keep in mind, what is the sacrifice required to actually do this work?
Mhm.
So on my end, a lot of it is very intense work with people, hearing their issues, and it's like energetically difficult. I used to
Yeah.
schedule sessions like throughout the day. No,
Yeah.
we are not doing that anymore. I am a one
Mhm.
session a day. So I know you're not at the point yet where you're mapping out your calendar and your schedule, but already having in your mind, how does this fit into my life and what is
Yep.
required on a time standpoint, energy standpoint, and maybe even some money too. The next bucket to think of. I do want to address the marketing questions that you originally came to me for because I have already ideas to give you. I just wanted to confirm that you were going in a direction that felt good, which it sounds like you really want to be efficient with your time, I think. So I would say joining communities where there are a group of people who you want to connect with. Where are these therapists convening amongst themselves? Where are these coaches helping one another? And then really creating content that's helpful for them, giving away effectively what you would help with them with. So
Yep.
consistent posts on LinkedIn, if you're comfortable being on camera, doing like videos of yourself once a week, right? Where you're not hyping up what you do. Yeah, of course, there's like the call to action at the end, but you
Mhm.
genuinely are providing valuable information to people to use today, whether or not they hire you. When they
Right.
see that, they're going to realize they could do the work themselves or they could save time and money by hiring you.
Mm.
So don't be afraid to give away your value already. Um,
Right.
that's why I do a free webinar before any expensive coaching program. And the free webinar, it's not a here's what you'll learn. No, because that's just gross. No,
Yeah.
in 60 minutes, I am going to teach you everything you need to know. However, you're not going to be able to follow through on it with me, right? You have no accountability. So chances are
Mhm.
you're not going to do the work. And when you join the coaching program, you're getting that supported hand holding, butt kicking. So already be thinking about in terms of how you might help somebody when they pay you. Is there a way that you could provide that upfront as content?
Mhm.
That's a fun brainstorm.
Yeah.
Have some initial hesitation because maybe whether it's, but I should be getting paid, or I don't know what the ideas are. And then you're going to have the roadblock, the resistance, and then you're going to spiral. So then you go, okay, let me put myself in the shoes of my client. What if I'm just scrolling on LinkedIn or scrolling on Instagram? What could I see from Deidre that would make me stop and have a moment of, okay, huh, that's a new way to think of something, or just get out of yourself and into them,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden I think you'll find the right ideas will pop into your head because it's no longer your head, right? It's theirs.
Mhm.
Or what are thoughts you're having?
I love this idea of I'm literally like starring, bolding, circling this. Get out of my head and
Mhm.
get into theirs.
Yes.
I love that because I know that's what I've been doing, right? And that's not helping anyone. It doesn't help me. It's not helpful to clients because and then I'm also like, I think this is what would be helpful. And again, back to that sort of not having the information or the data to validate these things. So that I love that. It's less, the idea is less scary than it was before we got on the call. It is still mildly scary.
Well,
I
that's
think,
good too. No,
I
mildly
think
scary
that
is good
is
too,
good.
because I
Yeah.
also think scary, it's actually excitement too,
Yeah.
that we
Yep.
confuse as anxiety, because
Yeah.
it's actually the same thing. Like what
Mm-hmm.
the amygdala and everything in our body that's getting activated,
Yep.
it's the same physiology. The process is the same, but it's the story that changes.
Mm,
So
yep.
I would say if you're not feeling a little nervous, that's actually not a good thing, because
Okay.
you're not growing, first of all,
Yep.
and you're just like intellectually interested in it, which tomorrow you'll be intellectually interested in something else. I would rather
Yep.
have you physically have just some energy associated with it. Just right now, the story is that it's fear, but this is
Yep.
this is actually an excellent sign, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I do try to do that in other areas of my life too, where I think of something and I'm like, that sounds terrifying. I'm like, okay, I think that means maybe you should do it because it's an opportunity to grow and just get out of my comfort zone. And I think I've just been very much in my comfort zone this year. And I think that's what probably a lot of my own hesitation and resistance has been, is I'm resisting a little bit of that. Okay, I'm going to have to dive into the unknown here. I'm going to have to maybe talk to people. And the introvert in me is like, oh no, I have to talk to people I don't know and things like that. I think you're right. I think the fact that it does make me feel a certain way is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I do tend to get caught up in my head. I love that point too about being intellectually interested in something is very different than being like energetically, wholeheartedly interested in something. It's very different.
And I really, again, when you have these conversations, you're listen for patterns. Listen, let's go back to the energy for a second. Where
Mm-hmm.
people start to get really excited or really nervous or cry, or like, where's the energy coming from them? By the way, experimenting with, maybe you do them on Google Hangouts so you can see each other. Or
Mm-hmm.
in my case, I was doing that before. No, phone calls. People were more
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable with me when they were not showing their face.
Yep.
So it took me a couple of phone calls to realize that, or excuse me, it took
Yeah.
me experimenting to realize that. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, is if something's not really working, that doesn't mean, again, the whole thing is shit. It's just, can we try
Yeah.
this in a bit of a different way? And then you're going to listen for patterns too, not just the patterns of where they're spending their time and money to solve their problem, but of their problems, because there's probably multiple.
Yeah.
Which ones are you hearing over and over again that you're getting super jazzed about? So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
already give you an example, which could be, people really want speaking gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're not just doing like general kind of comm strategy PR for service providers, but it's super specific to getting people speaking gigs. And maybe there's like
Yeah.
that process, or you'll figure out the logistics later, but really play around in your mind. What would it look like to go super niche and also more expansive? You
Yep.
know, because you haven't made a decision yet. And also, by the way, it doesn't mean you have to choose one way or another. Maybe you start with one and then you grow. Okay.
Yep.
But it's like you're serving a small group of people at an extremely high price point.
Yep.
You're serving a larger group of people at a medium price point. It all
Mm-hmm.
comes back
Mm-hmm.
to, for your process, what does it take for you to actually do this work? And do you even want to do it? But it sounds
Right.
like serving these people, that's the first step. Like, we know we're already getting more aligned here.
Yep.
Client is now changing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be excited to tell them about how you can help them. And then you're going to start helping them through the free content that you give. That's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more of a formula. Like, we're not
Yeah.
getting the wheel here. There's lead magnets, there's,
Yep.
structures to LinkedIn posts. Like, there's lots of information out there on how to do that. But
Yep.
you first really have to nail who you're helping achieve what outcome, for why, for what purpose, right? And I think
Yep.
we did that today. Technically at times. So Deirdre, I'm going to thank you so much for being here today. I know it sounded like what we were talking about was quite specific to you, but I think that a lot of people listening, no matter where they're at in their business or even in their careers, I hope this framework of finding information, listening to yourself, and thinking more expansively will help a lot of people just get moving. Is there anything you want to add before I let you go?
Yeah, I think I would just reinforce that, as that was one of my hopes in doing this with you today, was that there would be other people listening
Yeah.
who, like you said, even if they're in a different stage, that this would resonate and be really helpful. So I'm just honored to hopefully be part of that. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. You're the best.